As O says, stop placing your shield whenever you're standing up. This will make it to where when your shield is placed, you stand up automatically and you'll get your headshot off. Instead, when you place your OSHA shield, place it crouch. That way, whenever you finish deploying your OSHA shield, you'll stay crouched and you won't die because you decided to do it while standing up. Now that was just one out of 36 different attackers that I'll be going over in today's video. The second of which being Sledge. Now the mistake that I see Sledge players making is they'll make vert and then they'll immediately peek it. This is bad. If someone sees you making vert above them, they're just going to stare at it and hope you peek it and shoot you. Instead what you want to do is you want to make a bunch of vert. Make some right here, make some in the middle of kitchen right here, make some right next to that. Then you can go out into the hallway and make some vert into the hallway. You can make some right here, you can make some right here, you can make some above the default camera, and then you can make some even on the walls to get even crazier angles through the vert that you made onto this wall, right? And then, once you've made all the vert you want to make, then you peek your holes, because then they're not going to know which hole you're going to peek next, allowing you to be a lot safer with Sledge. Speaking of vert operators, next let's talk about buck. Now, if you're ever bucking above or below a wooden ceiling or floor, if you want to do it precisely, don't buck in the same exact direction that the wood is going. So if I were to buck in the same direction, it would look like this. It wouldn't fully open the floor and it'd be very inconsistent because the metal beams always go opposite of wherever the wood is going. So if the wood is going up and down, I know for a fact that metal beams are going to go left to right. So always buck the opposite of where the wood's going. So now I know because it's going left and right, I can buck up and down kind of like this. And now I get really, really consistent vertical, whereas this didn't even make it through the floor. Something else that you're using wrong is Nomad's air jabs. Now, if you're using a Nomad air jab and you're trying to air jab off the red stairs, don't put an air jab at the top of the stairs like this, because if I'm a defender, all I have to do is go down the red stairs and shoot it. It doesn't actually end up doing the job literally ever. If you want to air jab it, it makes a lot more sense to put it on the actual staircase here. Now, I can't shoot it from below, and if I want to shoot it, I have to get right up on it, which increases the chances of me actually having to get hit by the air jab instead of just shooting it for free. Something else you should really stop doing is throwing your Twitch drones directly into rooms and then getting on them. This might seem like a good idea, but here's the thing. If anyone was actually sitting in Master as a defender, they would just see the drone and shoot it. Unless, you know, they want to stay hidden, but most of the times they're going to do that. Instead, you can literally just throw it next to you. This gives you time to get on your drone before it gets shot, so that if it does get shot, you'll at least hear and be able to see who's shooting it, and you'll have more of a reaction time to see somebody and then jump your drone away so that it doesn't actually get shot. So make sure that you throw it next to you and not in any doorways or in any windows where it can get shot before you're able to get on it and realize where it got shot from. Speaking of information operators, let's talk about Zero. The mistake I see Zero players making is not actually using their cameras for flanks. As Zero, your primary function as an operator is to watch flank cameras. And if none of your teammates are dead, that means none of them are going to be watching the flank cameras, which means you need to be, otherwise they're going to be a complete waste of utility, and you might as well have played somebody like Nomad or Gridlock. Now, if one of your teammates die, then yes, you can leave watching cameras to them, but if you're in a solo queue environment, a lot of the times they won't watch it anyways, so you might just want to stay on cams the majority of the round. Someone else who brings 4 informational devices is Flores. Now, as Flores, the mistake I see Flores players making is whenever they put a Flores drone through somewhere and that Flores drone dies or they explode it, they'll send in another Flores drone in the exact same spot in hopes that like they'll actually get value out of the second one, even though the first one got shot. And if the first one got shot, chances are the second one's gonna get shot too. So it doesn't make sense to send it in the exact same place. Instead, if it got shot going down that vent and you're trying to get the shield in vase, then maybe send it in a different way. Like maybe go through the hookah door from the top of the roof instead. You can go in the hookah door, wrap around to the left here, and then explode the shield if you have time to do so. And if that doesn't work out, then you can open up the window and then like go through the window. So you get the idea, just never go through the same place that it just died, because the second one has just the same amount of chances dying as the first one, so it kind of just doesn't make sense, and I see a lot of Flores players doing this. Something else I see a lot is Ace players not separating their utility correctly. As Ace, if you're trying to get a wall open, chances are in this meta someone's tricking the wall, whether it be a bandit, Cade, Turbo Route, or even impact tricking. And the best way to counter this as Ace is to throw your Ace charges one next to the other as fast as possible. Don't throw one, wait 3 seconds, and then throw another one. Throw them immediately after each other as fast as you can to give whoever's tricking the wall the least amount of time to react. I don't know why I see so many people just spacing them out, but there's no reason to do that. Throw them as quickly next to each other as possible. Speaking of hard breachers though, let's go over Thermite. Now, the mistake that I see with Thermite players is if they have a Thatcher who's actively like trying to EMP the wall, they wait until the EMP actually explodes to put the Thermite on the wall. You don't have to do this. If you put a Thermite on an electrical wall, yes, it will get electrified and die, but it only will happen once the animation of you placing the Thermite on the wall is completely finished. So if I were to do this and cancel it, I still have that Thermite because the animation of me placing the Thermite on the wall didn't actually finish. And you can see this with the action completion bar in the middle of your screen right there. That means that whenever your Thatcher throws it on the wall, before it actually explodes, you have a few seconds of you placing the Thermite charge down that you can use while you're getting shocked, which, you know, can take a bit of your HP away, but it saves you a few seconds so that the Bandit Trigger or the K Trigger has even less seconds to react to trick your wall, which can be the difference between you opening this wall and it staying closed. So if you see a Thatcher being thrown, put it on the wall immediately. Don't wait for it to explode. And again, now that we're on this line of hard breachers, let's talk about Maverick. Now, the mistake that I see Maverick players making is they're way too fast or slow with their Maverick. Now, being fast with Maverick might seem like a great idea because you're saving fuel, but if you're way too fast with Maverick, it makes inconsistencies in the wall, and sometimes like that, it doesn't even break the wall open. You have to kind of be slow and methodical to actually consistently get the wall open, but you don't want to be too slow or you won't be fuel efficient. So how do you get this down? Well, a great rule of thumb, if you're doing it on the lower end of the wall at least, is you can just prone and look forward and use the actual movement of your character to move your torch across the wall, which will actually be like the perfect speed you need to get it open. So you'll be pretty fuel efficient. So instead of moving my crosshair, I can just start the blowtorch and move with my body. And usually this will get the wall open, not only quickly, but pretty efficiently. And look at that, I only missed one spot, and even then, is the wall connected? No, the wall's not even connected. I didn't even miss a spot. That was great. And you can do the exact same thing on the top as well. If you just hold your Alt key to slowly repel instead of fastly repel, you can kind of maneuver it in like the same way as well. If you kind of get it down, it's a little harder to do that. But once you get the speed down, it's not too hard to like mimic if you don't need to move and just do it with your crosshair. But don't be doing it too slow. You never want to ADS with the Maverick Torch either. That makes it way too slow. Just learn how to do it at the perfect speed to be fuel efficient. Now let's move on to our final hard breacher, Hibana. As Hibana, all you have to do to make a rotate for yourself is use 4 Hibana pellets. You don't need 6, you don't even need 12, you can just do it with 4. If you line it up on the reinforcement just like I do here, you can open it, and then now you're able to crouch through it, not even vault through it, you can just crouch through it with a rotate hole with only 4 Hibana pellets. So stop using more than 4. Now that we've gone over all of the hard breachers though, let's go over one of my personal favorite operators, which is Gridlock. Now most people think of Gridlock as a flank watch operator, but she really isn't. So the mistake that I see Gridlock players making is they're using Gridlock for flank watch way too much. It's okay to use Gridlock tracks like maybe once or twice to cover flanks, but that's not the primary goal as Gridlock. The primary goal as Gridlock is to actually lock the grid of a site, hence the name Gridlock, so that defenders can't rotate through the site and deny your plant. So let's say I want to plant in the spot here, or I want to plant in the ranked default spot right here. What I could do from Trophy Door is just put a Gridlock track on the attic rotate here. I could put one on the hallway right here, and then if the wall's open, I can put one on the wall too, and then I still have my flank covered while also making it a lot harder for them to rotate. And then I can, you know, I can smoke this off, and then I can get a plant down here, and now they can't rotate, they're smoked off, they can't see me. I can get the plant down, I can leave, and now the post plant is so much easier for me, and I still have a smoke, I still have a great weapon with an ACOG. So start doing this on Gridlock and stop using all of her tracks on the flank. Someone else who is highly misused is Sens, and the mistake that I see Sens players making is actually in their settings. In the settings menu, you need to have your visible throw trajectory on. One of the main weaknesses of Sens was the fact that you didn't know where the Sens gadget was going to go or bounce, but with this new mechanic where you can actually see the trajectory of where it's going to go, this huge weakness is no longer a weakness. So if you have this on, it makes playing Sens a lot more viable. Like right now, if I want to throw a Sens through this hallway, I might have accidentally hit that door frame, but now I know I'm not going to hit the door frame because I have the trajectory on. I might have accidentally hit it off the table instead of going like on the table to get this huge lineup that allows me to plant super safely right here without having to worry about any of the defender angles, right? So like if you have this one setting on, you can play Sens in a lot more viable way in order to not mess up their lineups. Now, a mistake that is much harder to fix is this mistake on Monty. Now, as Monty, my one mistake that I see players making is they're standing up when their shield isn't fully extended. If you extend your shield fully, it's fine to stand up because your feet are covered. But if it's not, your feet aren't covered and you're gonna get shot in the feet. So if you're ever unextended, you need to immediately crouch. And they just made it to where if you're crouched, they can't actually see your feet at all. So if you want to actually walk at them, while your deployable shield isn't like, you know, fully extended, you're able to do so now without getting shot in the feet. It's really powerful. But if you're walking up towards somebody, walk up towards them fully extended. Do not walk up like this even though you think your feet is covered by the rails, because they're not. You either want to walk at them extended or walk at them crouched. Now, I personally like walking at people crouched in scenarios where like it's a really tight corridor like this, because I can't get shot in the shoulders, I can't get shot behind, but it allows me to ADS quickly if I need to, or run at them really quickly if I need to, without having to make this huge sound of undeploying my shield that lets them know that I'm about to do something. So as Monty, extend your shield less and crouch more, but never under any circumstance should you be unextended and standing up so that they can shoot you in the feet. Now that we're on shield operators though, let's talk about Blitz. Now the thing about Blitz is you don't have that protection of being able to extend your shield and run at people. If you try to run at people, your legs are going to get shot, which is why Blitz is a lot harder to master than Monty. So that's just the thing. If you want to play Blitz correctly, just don't sprint at people if they're contesting you. If they're looking away from you, that's when you can sprint at them and flash them. But if they're directly looking at you, never sprint at anybody. Ever. With the exception of a few strats, you never want to do this because you're just going to get shot in the feet. Instead, just slowly walk up to them. Or if they're running away from you, you can ADS them. Or just, you know, if you're swinging an angle, you can ADS them too because they'll never expect you to be ADS'd. So never ever, if they're directly just looking at you and no one else is pressuring them, never run at them. They're just going to shoot you in the legs. It's a dumb idea. Instead, you can just crouch up to them. Or you can like sit on an angle, peek, ADS them, right? Just never ever run at people with your legs up like this. If they're only looking at you and they only have to look at you, you're just gonna get killed. Someone else who has a shield is Fuse. Now the number one mistake that I see Fuse players making is they go Fuse a surface like this without roam clearing, which is really, really bad. Because if you're in the middle of fusing something, it makes a loud cue. And if I'm a roamer, all I have to do is sit on this doorway and wait for that fuse sound to be being made. And then I'll just swing the guy as he's on his fuse cluster and kill him. And as a fuse player, if you know and you play fuse, you know this happens a lot. So the number one mistake I see that you need... So in order to fix this mistake and not let it happen to you, only actually fuse the floor once your team has roam cleared, or once you have roam cleared. Alternatively as well, you can just pick a position where you don't even need to roam clear. Let's say I broke the hatch here, I droned out a little bit up top, and I know no one's really like in the vicinity, then I can just get up here on the top floor, where it's much less dangerous that they're going to roam clear me. Then once I explode the fuse charge, all I gotta do is hold one angle, and that's all I have to worry about. Then I can go back to the same place that I just fuse charged, which was right about here, yep. And then I can do it again, and then just hold the door, and then you can just keep doing this over and over and over again, and then eventually you'll have enough vert to where the fuses will start working, and all you gotta do is hold one angle, and you don't gotta worry about being roam cleared. It's really... And then you don't have to worry about roamers coming and kill you. So it's a lot better than just running in the building and hoping you don't get flanked. I've done that. Doesn't work out that well. But as you can see, I still have a bunch of vert and grenades on site. It works the exact same, and I'm in way less danger. Let's move on to the other Russian attacker, which is Glaz. Now, as Glaz, one of the many things that you need to stop doing is smoking super close to you. If I'm a defender and I see that there's a smoke here and I know there's a Glaz, I'm just going to pre-fire wherever I see the bullets coming from, which is really, really bad for you. As Glaz, this can get you killed a lot, so don't do this. Instead, throw your smoke far away from you. So if I know that they're going to be on this doorway or they're going to be on the rotate, I can actually just smoke the physical doorway itself while I'm on the rappel, and then look through it, and then start shooting people. Now, if I'm a defender, and I'm looking through this smoke, it's a lot harder for me to even, one, see the doorway on the other side, much less pre-fire anybody who's on it, and if I see the bullet trails, it's a little bit harder for me to pre-fire that too. So, make sure, even this goes for other operators, but Glaz specifically, just smoke closer to the defender, and not close to you, or else you'll get pre-fired. Speaking of sniper operators, let's go over Kali. Now, one thing that's cool about Kali is her sniper, obviously, but the mistake I see Kali players making is they use her sniper too often. If you're sitting in ruins, it's cool to use your sniper because you're from a far enough distance away to where it makes sense. But if later in the round, when they need you on site to be getting picks to get the plant down, if you're still using your sniper, that's kind of bad. I understand some people are pretty good with it, and that's pretty understandable, but the SMG that she has is absolutely insane. The reason that they call this the Mini F2 is because its stats are literally almost identical to the F2 that comes on Twitch. That's how good it is, and if you can learn how to actually control this thing, wow, that was embarrassing. I overcompensated hella. But if you learn how to actually like control the recoil of this thing, it's really, really, really good. So don't be using the sniper so much, especially at closer ranges. Don't be afraid to use the SMG. It's just a really good SMG. Stop overusing the sniper. Moving on, let's talk about Lion. The number one mistake that I see Lion players making is the second they spawn in, they'll just randomly Lion scan. I don't know why people do this. It doesn't give you like a real advantage. Just save it for later in the round. Now you might be thinking, well, it'll stop spawn peekers from spawn peeking, but how would that be true? If I'm a defender and I'm spawn peeking, I'm already sitting still. So if I get Lion scanned, I'm still just gonna hold the angle and sit still and get my free kill. So Lion scanning in the beginning of the round, it doesn't do anything. Stop doing it and save it for later in the round. Speaking of an information operator, let's talk about Jackal. Now, the mistake that I see Jackal players making is they don't know which footsteps to prioritize. Not only should you be prioritizing the right operators that you're trying to track, hence roamers, but you also need to be prioritizing the right color of footsteps. Let's say you don't really know who to track operator-wise because all the roamers are dead, so you're just tracking anchorers. Well, you want to be tracking red footsteps the most and blue footsteps the least, because red footsteps are fresher on the board, while blue steps are actually the oldest on the board, which means the information that they'll be getting is late, and the roamers that you're tracking are probably already back on site. Whereas red footsteps actually track people that are near you, because the footsteps are still fresher, which means the person had to be there in a short amount of time to put those footsteps there. So you want to be tracking footsteps that are more red and less blue. Now that we're on the topic of roam clear operators though, let's go over Dokkaebi. Now, as Dokkaebi, the biggest mistake that I see is people just over droning. I know I've talked about this in my past videos, but I've talked about it so often because it seriously is the most common mistake that I see. As Dokkaebi, if you're trying to, let's say, roam clear the basement to push upstairs, you don't need to drone all of barrels, all of elbow, all of pillar, Harry Potter, the tier 1 staircase, the E-box staircase, downstairs site, the hallway, all of freezer, all of laundry, all of bottom, like it's just unnecessary. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is drone out the initial room. So all I need to do is drone out this room and elbow, and if there's an angle watching into elbow, then I'd also need to drone out anybody who could be sitting in that angle. That's it. Then I can call just like this, and if I don't hear any phones ringing near me, then I know all of these rooms in the basement are completely clear if I don't hear any phone calls. And that was way faster than sitting here and droning out all of the individual rooms when I was just gonna call anyways. So now you're wasting a lot less time and getting the same amount of information while also helping out your teammates in the process who are probably using those phone calls for information too. For the next operator, let's talk about Grim. The biggest mistake that I see Grim players making is they're swinging with their launcher way too often. You want to be swinging with your launcher as least as possible, and you want to be avoiding it as much as possible. The reason for this being is if you swing with your launcher out and someone shoots you, you don't have your gun up to fight back, and you're just going to die. So if I'm trying to like Grim be behind this desk to see if anyone's behind the desk or behind the bomb chassis, if my teammate's trying to go for a plant, instead of just wide swinging the door and shooting a Grim Bee canister and putting my life at risk, I could instead just prone and do the exact same thing, and now I'm not peeking the mirror, I'm not peeking anybody behind the bomb chassis, or at least as much. You also are able to avoid this by using the bounce mode, so if I'm trying to see if anyone's in this left corner as Grim, instead of swinging and shooting it, I can also just bounce it off of, oh, didn't have my bounce mode on, you know what I mean. I can just bounce it off the windowsill, and then now I have Grimbees in here and I didn't need to peek it at all. So there's a lot of ways that you can just not put yourself in danger as Grim that you really should start doing instead of just wide swinging with your launcher out. Something else you should really stop doing is using Finka Boost to reload faster. Now, something I didn't realize is with this new patch, they took out the ability for Finka to reload faster whenever she boosts. I didn't know this, and whenever I told people to do it in one of my tip videos, I got absolutely flamed in the comments, so I do apologize for making that mistake. That is my bad. I did not know. It's never my intention on this channel to spread misinformation, but never try to use the Finka Boost, again, like I said, to reload faster, because it just doesn't work, unfortunately, now with the new season. You also need to stop throwing 2 Thatcher EMPs at the exact same time. If you throw one Thatcher EMP and a second one immediately after, they're gonna explode seemingly at the same time, whereas if you actually space them out correctly, one would explode, And then as you throw the second one would explode after. And that wastes a lot more time for someone who's trying to trick the wall, and a lot more utility for your thermite or ace to open the wall than if you were to throw them exactly at the same time and it seemingly be the same as one EMP explosion. So as thermite, you want to space them out as much as possible. Now, this does actually depend on the type of person they're using to keep the wall closed. If they have a Cade, you want to space them out more because it takes the Cade longer to keep the wall closed. But for a bandit, he gets to put his charges down faster, so you want to make it a bit of a tighter window, but never just throw them down at the same time. It doesn't make sense. Next, let's talk about Ashe. Now, Ashe is useful for Ashe rushing. Another thing that she's also useful for is getting super cool angles through floors like this. Now, I have a huge angle onto anybody trying to play on this rotate or Mira, or anybody in the basement at all. So if my teammates plant, I can get some good cover on this doorway if they try to push. But I never want to repel like this, because if I do this and someone were to push here, they can actually see my feet before I can see theirs. So as Ashe, you never want to do this. Instead, upside down repel. Now, my head can see their feet before they can see my head, which makes it so where I can see them first and shoot them before they're ever even able to see me. If you want a better example of what this angle can look like, you actually want to make it just a tad bit further back. So now, yeah, it's way easier for me to see anybody on that wall. I can easily Ashe the Mira with my second breaching round if I did it right the first time. I could even see further back if I were to, you know, like actually break this wall open too. So like, if you're ever upside down repelling as Ashe to get angles, you always want to do it upside down and never right side up, because it makes it to where you can see them before they can see you. The next operator is Ram. Now, if you're ever using a RAM device like this and you're throwing it through a window to rush in kind of like this, that makes sense. But if you're ever doing it to make vert on a floor like this, maybe let's say the site is bathroom and you're activating your RAM drone, you don't want to just throw a RAM drone in and then peek it, right? Otherwise, if there's anybody in this room, they're going to swing and kill you. Instead, what you want to do, let's shut you up. All right, yep, you're making too much noise now. What you want to do instead is throw it and immediately get off. That way, when it breaks the barricade, you're not gonna get swung immediately, and you can kind of like bait it out. You know what I'm saying? But don't just like immediately swing it. You're gonna get your head blown off a lot. Like just, you know, throw it in there, back up, maybe bait somebody out, and then you can peek it. The next operator you're making a mistake on is Zofia. The mistake that I see players making is if there's somebody, let's say, behind pillar over here, they'll shoot in 2 stuns at one time. It's not like doing this will stun the player twice, or like double stun them, or it'll have double the effect. It has the exact same effect. It's like the same thing with Thatcher. You don't want to do it twice in a row. If you're like doing 1 stun one place and then 1 stun the other place, that makes sense, right? Or if you're doing it once and then delaying it and do it again to like really like stun them for a long period of time, that makes sense. But don't just like, you know, get out your stuns and then just like double stun twice. That doesn't do anything extra. You're just wasting another stun for absolutely nothing. Like you're just wasting it for no reason. My next tip is with Brava. This is a pretty simple one. You just don't want to hack Thunderbird stations. It doesn't matter what team you're on. Thunderbird stations will heal you just the same. So it doesn't make sense to waste a hack on a Thunderbird station as a Brava player, because it's going to heal you regardless of what side it's on, so it's just a waste of a hack. You could be prioritizing other utility like Fenrir Mines, Melusi Gadgets, Aruni Gates, even Wall Denial, ADSs, things of that nature. Hacking Thunderbirds is quite literally useless. Don't do it. My next tip is with Yana. Now, as Yana, if you're ever droning out somewhere that you think an enemy might be, never let your Yana clone get shot or destroyed, because after you do that, the cooldown of your Yana clone being recharged, as you can see on my left-hand side of the screen, will actually take longer than if you were to just manually get on it and then manually disable it. So never let it get destroyed. Always turn it off before you think it's going to get destroyed, so you get that cooldown back for your clone faster. Another mistake that you need to stop making is with Amaru. Now, the common Amaru push for the second floor of Oregon is through the kids window right here. But the mistake that I see players making is they don't have a drone in the place they're going to Amaru rush. They just take the 50-50 chance of going in without any information and just hoping that they don't have somebody looking at them when they do it. As you can tell by what just happened, Amaru rushing makes a lot of noise. So if there's anybody in the vicinity, they're just going to look at the window, stare at it, and shoot you when you come in. So in this instance, what you can literally do is send in a drone through the attic drone hole that's right here behind this sandbag. Actually go in attic and see if anybody is in attic on the rotate watching the window or near the window enough to shoot it. See if anybody is inside of kids, and if somebody is inside of kids, if they're in the corner, that's fine. They won't be able to shoot you. You'll be able to pre-fire them, but like make sure you know if it's actually safe to go in before you pull out your launcher and go in. The next operator you're making a mistake with is knock, or nook, whatever you want to say. I don't want to hear a single comment about my pronunciation ever again. I get it every video. Now, as knock, stop sprinting when you use her ability. You see those yellow lines on the sides of the screen? That means they can clearly see you on the camera. So when your ability is active, never ever sprint. Always walk, but you can walk fast. You don't have to sprint, but you can still walk pretty fast, and you won't get spotted on the camera. Just never sprint as knock. It makes your ability useless, and you might as well just not have the ability active because they'll be able to hear you too. Next, let's talk about Ying. The mistake that I see Ying players making is they'll just throw in a bunch of their Ying Candelas at one time. These Ying Candelas have a lot of flashes inside of them, each one counting as a projectile, and you can make it to where you only cook it by 1 bar, which can waste a lot of time as opposed to cooking it all 3 bars and it exploding immediately. If you throw in all your Ying Candelas at one time, it only wastes just a tiny bit of time. But if you want to be able to get in, plant, and get out, you can use all 4 Ying Candelas really strategically to cover you the entire time you're doing that. So if I throw in one with 0 bars of charge, just like this, that'll waste enough time to where I can get in, and then start throwing another Ying Candela with 1 charge, get the bomb down. By the time that's fully exploded, I can throw another one with 1, bar of charge, and then I can get out, and now I still have 1 Ying Candela left. And if they try to actually go for the defuse, I can fully charge it just like this, and now the second it hits the floor, it'll explode. And then I can easily go up and just get a free kill, right? Whereas if I had thrown in all 4 at once, I wouldn't have been able to cover myself when planting, when running away from the plant, and also when coming back in to kill the person who's defusing. So make sure that you space these out a lot more, and you don't just throw them consecutively ever. Someone else who can deny vision is Capitao. One of the things that kind of sucks about Capitao that either can be a thing that's really good or a thing that's really bad is the fact that wherever you shoot your smoke bolts, they're going to stick to. So let's say that I want to smoke off this red door so my thermite can come in and plant the bomb right here. If I shoot the door like this, it still leaves this huge gap that they can use to see anyone's feet when they're walking in. So the unfortunate part about Capitao smokes is you have to literally shoot almost the floor for it to at all be viable so you don't get shot. So make sure that if you're trying to cover a doorway and not make a one-way smoke, you shoot the actual floor and not a doorway and get your teammates' feet shot off. Another thing you need to stop doing is rappelling on windows as Blackbeard. Now there are certain exceptions to this rule that you can actually make work, but for the majority of the actual playstyle of Blackbeard, holding super tight angles is actually the best way to play Blackbeard. Not only do you minimize the amount of target that they're able to hit onto you, which is already the issue with Blackbeard in the first place, but also if you run the DMR, holding tight angles is already super good for you because all you have to do is pump 2 bullets into their body, whereas they'd have to pump multiple, and they have a really tight window to do that, which makes it kind of hard, and it makes it super easy for you to get that kill. And if you have a shield on your face and you're holding a really tight angle, it makes it way harder for them to headshot you again because they have to put multiple bullets into you, which is hard from a tight angle. So Blackbeard naturally suits people who hold tight angles, not people who sit on windows. So stop sitting on windows as often and start holding really tight angles with this DMR, and you'll see a lot more value out of Blackbeard in your ranked games. Next, let's talk about IQ. Now, the mistake that I see IQ players making is if they have teammates that are walking into a certain part of the building, they're not pinging utility for them. Now, let me turn on my actual HUD so you can see what I'm talking about, but actually, like a few seasons ago, they made it to where IQ can ping things through walls. So if you see that your team is pushing from a side of the map and you notice, oh, there's a Kapkan trap in front of that guy, let me ping that for him so he knows it's there. That can be the difference between your teammates dying to Kapkan traps and them shooting it and you winning or losing the round. So stop actually just being selfish with IQ, and if you notice your teammates are going somewhere, start pinging utility for them, so there's way less likely of a chance that they die to the utility that's in front of them. Finally, let's talk about the newest attacker to the game, Deimos. A huge mistake that I see Deimos players making is they play Deimos on sites where you can't wallbang people. A huge buff that Deimos gets compared to other attackers is the ping that they get through the floor, and the ping that you get is a lot more accurate than the ping that the enemies get. So naturally, trying to floor bang people when you get a ping on them is going to be very useful to you, especially with your high caliber revolver that specializes in shooting through soft floors. However, if they're on a site where there's barely any soft floors, don't play Deimos, or at least don't try to get wallbangs with Deimos. Oregon is a terrible Deimos map, because on the basement site, there's no verticality that you can get with Deimos to shoot people. Even the second floor site, there's not a lot, because all they have to do to avoid you is go into attic, where there's a hard floor and you can't shoot them. Whereas a map like Villa, which has a lot of soft destruction, you can easily get Deimos value out of. So you have to pick the strategies that you're doing and the maps that you're doing with Deimos very, very strategically. But with that out of the way, that is it for this video. My name's Alka, check out this next video, and I'll see you there. Later.